China just launched the world's first flying car, shocking the US. First of all, amazing. Amazing technology. For a simple reason. Cars are on the ground, which is basically on streets and everything. And the ground, the streets are basically a two-dimensional network of connections. Sure, there are bridges and stuff who break this rule a little bit, but mostly a two-dimensional plane. But with flying cars, there wouldn't be any traffic jam because you can layer everything. If everyone had a flying car, sure, if there is an accident, it will most likely be a little more devastating because you first fall. But yeah, is this flying car just a helicopter? Because I see here like rotor blades and stuff and a landing structure. There are no wheels or anything on that thing. And I also wonder if it can really fly or if it can only hover, like slightly above the air, like a hovercraft. Well, that's something I'll figure out now.
China just did what every other country said was decades away. A fully autonomous flying taxi.
A flying taxi. So basically, yes, a flying car. Dude, why are you so high? You're above the mountains. Where is this? This looks amazing. Is this China? Does China look like that? Like the land area of China, I assume?
No pilot, no runway, no manual controls, is already carrying real passengers in real Chinese cities right now. It is commercially certified and has completed over 40,000 test flights. And nobody outside China is talking about how big this actually is. This isn't a prototype sitting in a lab somewhere. This isn't a concept video with a coming in 2030 disclaimer at the bottom. A two-seat electric pod that lifts off vertically, flies itself across a city at 90 kilometers per hour, and lands itself completely on its own. The world's first. No other country has done it. Not the United States, not Germany, not Japan.
Yeah.
China got there first, and it did it years ahead of what most aviation experts thought was even remotely possible.
That is very impressive that it is possible. It only having two seats though limits the use case quite significant. Also, I don't want to even imagine how expensive it is to fly with this for the company. Why would it be expensive? I don't know. It seems like flying through the air takes way more fuel or energy than rolling along the street. So of course I need more energy and then I need to pay for the energy. I think electric cars are still more energy efficient than flying electric taxi, probably. But it solves a bunch of problems for sure. I see that being very, very good. I wonder how fast they will be on the entire world.
China didn't just build a flying car. It certified one, commercialized it, and plugged it into an entirely new sector of its economy.
I also see one other problem. Where to land? If you want to get to an area where there is no landing station, this looks a little bigger than a car, you know?
One that the government is officially backing with policy, money, and a very ambitious plan. The low-altitude economy, as they call it, is projected to be worth 3.5 trillion yuan by 2035.
Okay, you know what? Before I calculate how much that is in euros or something, he probably says 3.5.
Projected to be worth 3.5 trillion yuan by 2035. That's not a startup dream. That's a national strategy. If this is already surprising you,
okay,
stick around, because it gets a lot bigger. And if you enjoy stories like this, hit like and subscribe so you never miss what's coming next. So, how exactly did they pull this off? And what does the vehicle actually look like up close? Let's get into it.
We had a
A
bunch
vehicle
of
that
camera
broke
shots
all
already.
the rules. Let's start with the machine itself, because it is genuinely unlike anything most people have seen outside of a video game.
It is
the EHang
pretty small,
EH216S looks like someone took a giant drone and decided to make it comfortable enough for 2 people.
Yeah.
It has
Make it comfortable enough for 4 people. I was thinking about 4 or 6, but I think if you use a taxi like that, you're most likely either alone or with your friend. Having more than 4 seats is kind of a niche then. But also transporting more than 2 people is probably even more energy that you need to fly. They look very futuristic. I wonder if they are designed like this because of aerodynamics and stuff, or just because it looks cool.
16 propellers arranged in 8 arms, 2 seats, and a simple screen inside. There's no steering wheel, no pedals, no throttle.
Yeah,
You
automatic
sit down,
driving.
the route is already programmed, and the thing just goes. It takes off vertically. No runway, no taxiing, no pre-flight checklist for the passenger. It climbs, it navigates, it descends, and it lands, all on its own. The passenger's only real job
Not
is to
bad.
enjoy the view, and, if something goes wrong, press a button to talk to the operators on the ground. Now here's where most people expect the catch. Surely something this futuristic must be experimental, right? Still in the testing phase? Being trialed by a handful of engineers in a closed facility somewhere?
No, it was in the tasting phase already for like 5 years or at least. I assume. China's just way too
In
fast
October
with that.
2023, China's Civil Aviation Administration issued the EH216S, the world's first type certificate for an autonomous passenger-carrying aircraft. That means a
Okay.
national aviation authority looked at this machine, put it through rigorous safety standards, and officially said, yes, this is fit to carry humans.
You know what I find crazy? Why do we get self-driving, flying cars before we get self-driving cars? Because I'm pretty sure here in Austria we don't have that. But in China, yeah. China is just sprinting through one post goal after the next one. When it comes to technological advancements, it's insane what they accomplish.
No country had ever done that for a pilotless passenger vehicle before. And then, in early 2025, EHang went a step further. It received the world's first air operator certificates for a pilotless electric aircraft, meaning it could officially start commercial operations, paying customers, real flights, real cities. The machine
Cool.
that looked like the future had just become the present.
I still want an answer to the question, what is it with the landing positions? You cannot just pull a rope out and tangle down, and there is not a landing spot like everywhere, unless the company is buying like all the landing spots or building all the landing spots, or you just search for a normal parking spot. Probably 2 because it's bigger.
Before getting that certification, EHang completed over 40,000 test flights. That number is worth sitting with.
Yeah.
40,000. That's not a prototype. That's a machine they absolutely know works. What it's actually like to ride one.
Well, I guess you just sit in, press your destination, and then it does its thing.
Here's what's fascinating about the inside of this aircraft. It's almost deliberately simple. You're not surrounded by dials and instruments like a traditional cockpit.
Yeah,
There are
because
2 seats,
you don't have to drive.
a navigation screen showing your route, a communication button, a small fire extinguisher tucked to one side. That simplicity is intentional. EHang's argument is that removing the human pilot doesn't just cut costs, it makes the aircraft safer.
Yeah.
Human error is one of the leading causes of aviation accidents globally.
Yeah, humans are just. I mean, it makes sense. If you program something to do something in a specific way, they will always do it in a specific way. If you tell a person to do something always the same, they will get bored and start doing mistakes after a while. Sure, human mistakes are the leading cause in pretty much everything.
When you take the human out of the loop entirely and replace them with automated systems that don't get tired, distracted, or panicked, you're potentially building something more reliable than anything with a person at the controls. The aircraft can reach speeds of up to 90 kilometers per hour and cover a range of 130 kilometers on a single charge. For comparison, that range is roughly the distance from one major city district to another, more than enough for an urban commute or a
130 kilometer. I need to relativize this. If I'm in Vienna, how far can I go? So I can go from Vienna to Linz, pretty much. Yeah, that's a good one. Especially considering how many times do you actually need to make this distance with a taxi instead of a train or something.
scenic tourist flight. At the moment, EHang's biggest customers are tourism operators. Think breathtaking aerial views over scenic landscapes, along with government agencies, using the aircraft for firefighting, surveillance, and law enforcement patrols. These aren't fringe applications. They're foundational use cases that are already generating revenue and proving out the technology in real-world conditions. But tourism and policing are just the beginning. The broader vision, the one that the Chinese government is actively funding and planning around, is to make this a daily mode of transport.
How about you? Is taxi still a huge thing? Because when I want to go from point A to point B, I use public transport. It's way cheaper than taxi. Like I use trains and buses and stuff. Or I just go by foot.
An air taxi network woven into the fabric of city life. Think of it like a rideshare app.
Dude, okay. One more thing. How noisy are they? Because cars are pretty noisy until they are electric cars. Because electric cars are not noisy anymore. But I don't know if you can get rid of the sound of the rotors rotating.
But instead of a car showing up, a silent pod descends from the sky, picks you up, and drops you off 3 kilometers away in under 5 minutes.
A silent pod, they say. How silent?
That sounds wild, but the infrastructure planning is already underway. The government has entered the chat. This is the part that makes China's flying car story different from every other flying car story you've ever heard. Startups around the world have been promising flying cars for decades. Companies in the United States, Europe, and Japan have unveiled stunning concept vehicles, raised billions in funding, and generated enormous press coverage. Some of them have made real progress, but almost all of them are still waiting for regulatory approval, waiting for infrastructure, waiting for public acceptance, waiting for someone to say, yes, you can do this. China skipped most of that waiting. In 2024,
I don't know what else I can say here, but if I were China, of course I would push it too, because it seems like useful for so many people.
the government officially wrote the low-altitude economy into its annual National Work Report, labeling it a new growth engine alongside electric vehicles and renewable energy. When the Chinese government puts something in the National Work Report, it doesn't just mean they like the idea. It means policies will be shaped around it. Local governments will be evaluated on supporting it, and state-backed investment will flow toward it. The low-altitude economy refers to all commercial and civilian activity happening below 1,000 meters. That includes drones delivering packages, helicopters doing medical transport, and yes, autonomous air taxis carrying passengers. the entire ecosystem is being developed simultaneously. Not just the vehicles, but the regulations, the airspace management systems, the landing infrastructure, and the public communication networks needed to coordinate it all.
Yeah, true. It will interfere with other aircrafts like delivery drones. If there are a lot of taxis in the air,
By 2025, there were roughly 57,000 companies operating in this sector across China. The Civil Aviation Administration is processing certifications. City governments are building vertiports and landing pads, and the National
exactly.
Economic
Okay. This taxi does not bring you right in front of your doorbell. This taxi only brings you to the nearest landing pad. So it is actually more like a two-person bus station, but for the air, like a private jet almost. A very economically and environmental friendly private jet.
target for the sector sits at 1.5 trillion yuan for 2025 alone, rising to 3.5 trillion by 2035. What you're witnessing isn't just a cool gadget getting popular. It's a coordinated industrial strategy, and it's already in motion. But wait, there's another one.
Another?
Here's where it gets genuinely unexpected.
More drones?
Because the EHang air taxi, remarkable as it is, isn't the only flying vehicle making headlines in China. There's a second company with an entirely different approach, and their solution is almost philosophically opposite. The company is called Airage, and it's affiliated with XPeng, one of China's leading electric vehicle manufacturers. Their product is something they call the land aircraft carrier, and the name alone should give you a hint about how ambitious this thing is. Picture a large, sleek, six-wheeled van,
Okay.
a proper road vehicle that you can drive anywhere a car can go.
That looks very futuristic. I don't like the design, it's too flat in my opinion. But the bulkiness kind of makes sense if you want to transport a flying vehicle, basically a drone from somewhere to somewhere else. You need a big car to transport it. Makes sense. But I don't like it. I don't really like the design.
Parking lot, a campsite, a scenic hillside, but hidden inside the rear of that van is a compact flying module. When you want to take to the sky, the rear of the van opens, the flying module extends out, and you lift off from wherever you happen to be parked.
Okay. And then? Wait. Why is the car... Let him talk. Maybe he explains how I get the car to be where I am.
The driving stick inside controls both the van and, with training that the company says takes less than 5 minutes to master, the aircraft as well. When you land, the module folds back into the van. You drive home. You park it in your normal parking space. You charge everything overnight using the van's own onboard power system, which can recharge the flying module for up to 6 full flights. What Airage has essentially designed is a solution to the infrastructure problem that has haunted flying vehicle concepts for years. You don't need a network of vertiports. You don't need dedicated landing pads. You don't need a special license beyond a standard driving license. The ground vehicle becomes the infrastructure, and the range? The van itself can travel over 1,000 kilometers. Combined with 6 recharging cycles for the flying module, you could theoretically drive a long distance, fly over a stretch that isn't road accessible, land, fold everything back up.
Do I also need a landing station for that? Probably not. If I can start in the middle of the road, I can probably also land in the middle of the road. Within reason, of course, okay? Within reason.
And keep driving.
How is the car supposed to go to the other side of the mountain?
It's a vehicle built for a world where roads and skies are equally navigable. Now, the price. One of these will set you back somewhere between $300,000 and $400,000.
Quite
That's
the price.
not a mass market product. Not yet. The first units rolled off the production line in Guangzhou in late 2025, with around 7,000 pre-orders already placed. CAAC certification is still being finalized, with deliveries targeting late 2026. But here's the thing about technology pricing. It never stays where it starts.
Yeah, it will get
The
cheaper,
first
of course.
smartphones cost a small fortune. Electric vehicles were once luxury items. Scale, competition, and manufacturing efficiency have a way
thing
of
that
making the extraordinary
Items
affordable
get
over
cheaper
time.
over
The
time
land
is
aircraft
something that he
carrier
does
is
not
today's
explain to me.
premium
That's
product,
kind of
but it's
normal.
already showing us what tomorrow's
Phones,
mainstream might
TVs,
look like.
PCs, unless there
this
is a
change is
disturbance in the market, like with the recent AI bullshit that's going on and graphics cards. But that's like the exception. Usually everything gets cheaper over time.
More than just getting around. At this point, you might be thinking, okay, this is impressive, but it's still just a fancy transport option for wealthy tourists and government agencies. What does this actually change for regular people? The answer sits in the architecture of cities themselves.
Yeah. Is he now talking about the 2D plane that I talked about before? Traffic is getting jammed the more people you have in a 2D plane, which is like streets and stuff. If you can extend it into the third dimension, that will be solved, or that will be easier to manage.
Urban traffic is one of the defining problems of the 21st century. Cities that were built for walking or for horses were retrofitted for cars. Then they were expanded, widened, and layered with flyovers and underpasses and ring roads, and the traffic got worse anyway. Every city planner knows the uncomfortable truth.
The problem is probably to bring the flying drones to the common people, like not the super rich whatever guys who spend the 300,000 on a flying car. The thing is, people that have that much money already use transportation methods that do not interfere with traffic jam, like private jets, flying with normal airplanes, but usually not car. Them having a for people who use private jets anyway, for them having a flying drone does not change the situation of traffic jam and stuff. So people with less money need to have access to the flying car for traffic jam to be not a thing anymore. That's probably a big step if they ever manage to do that.
You can't build your way out of congestion on the ground. Every new road generates new demand that fills it right back up. The sky has no such problem. Airspace above cities is, right now, almost entirely unused below 1,000 meters. There are no traffic jams at 300 meters altitude. There are no potholes. There are no traffic lights.
What about airplanes? An airport. Probably there is a no-fly zone around there with the exceptions of the actual airplanes. So if you have an airport near a city or inside of a city, then you cannot use these to get there. They fly 90 kilometers per hour. You know how fast airplanes go? Me neither, but I assume it's like 200 or something. Boah, 900? Commercial airplanes typically cruise at speeds of 740 to 900. Okay, while takeoff speeds are around 300. Okay, a little less than 300. Yeah, but still, imagine you're in one of those drones near an airport and then an airplane comes along with 300 kilometers per hour. Boom! Well, at least it's a fast death. No, I assume that airports have kind of a no-fly zone around them, or a no-drone zone, because they fly all the time. but a no drone zone.
There are no traffic lights. Low-altitude vehicles change the geometry of urban movement entirely. A journey that takes 45 minutes in stop-and-go traffic could take under 10 minutes by air.
Yeah.
Emergency services could reach any point in a city within minutes regardless of ground conditions.
Because you don't need any roads.
Medical evacuations, firefighting, real-time surveillance, these things improve across the board when the airspace is utilized. And for rural and mountainous regions, of which China has an enormous amount, the implications are even bigger. Communities that are hours from a hospital or a market by road could become minutes away by air. The access gap between urban and rural populations, which has defined economic inequality for generations, starts to narrow in ways that roads alone never could. This isn't just transport innovation. It's infrastructure that rethinks what proximity means. The sky is no longer the limit.
I think the sky is the limit though. You cannot go into space with them.
There's a moment in that Al Jazeera report where the journalist, sitting in the Ehang air taxi without a pilot, says something honest and human. "I'm not going to look down." And then, almost immediately, "Am I going to look down?" That reaction captures something important, because for all the statistics and policy targets and market projections, the most significant thing about what's happening in China right now is the psychological shift it represents. Flying has been, for most of human history, something that required extraordinary machines, extensive training, and enormous infrastructure.
Or a lot of money.
It was the domain of specialists. What autonomous electric
that's
air
what I mean,
vehicles
yeah.
are doing, slowly, then suddenly, is turning flight into something ordinary, something you could order on your phone, something a tourist can experience on a weekend trip, something that governments can use to coordinate emergency response without a trained pilot on standby. The technology to fly without a pilot, without a runway, and without a conventional fuel source already exists. The regulatory framework to do it commercially already exists in China. The market demand is building. The government investment is committed. The vehicles are being manufactured at scale. Other countries will get there too.
It is
The United
pretty
States,
impressive.
the European
Not
Union,
gonna lie.
South Korea, and others all have active programs pursuing similar certifications and similar visions.
I wonder how long China is doing that already. If there is a program apparently in Germany or somewhere in Europe for like the last 10 years for flying cars, why was no one able to do it? I cannot buy or use any flying car. I don't know if there is anywhere in where I can drive in the next 24 hours to use a flying car.
But China has a head start that matters. It has proof. Not a prototype, not a concept, not a rendering. An actual certified flying taxi that has completed over 40,000 test flights and is now carrying real passengers in real cities.
Is this already implemented?
The future,
Or is
famously,
is this still in test phase or is it already operating?
is already here. It's just not evenly distributed yet. But when it comes to low-altitude flight, China just moved the distribution considerably further along. The question now isn't whether flying cars become part of daily life, it's how quickly and which cities will lead the way. And as the journalist said at the end of that flight, touching back down on solid ground, grinning and a little breathless, we did it. If this blew your mind even a little, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell.
I wonder why I can't do that here in Europe, where the flying car project is already going on for way longer than in China. I'm not sure about this. Regardless, the flying cars I like. The truck with the flying car, I don't really like the design, but that is personal preference, I guess. It would probably be a little more useful though, because I don't think you need a landing pod. Cool. Good video.